Hi there, and welcome to Reddit Confessions. If you're new here, grab a drink, hold on to your sanity, and buckle in, because this story doesn't start with a fight, or a lie, or even a goodbye. It starts with laundry, and a sweater I hadn't seen in years. There it was, draped neatly over the back of the living room chair. Soft beige, a little faded, but still warm from the dryer. I stared at it for a long time before realizing what was bothering me. She'd folded my sweater, but it wasn't mine anymore. It hadn't been for a while. That was the first clue. The second was the sudden wave of vanilla and something floral, her new perfume, clinging to the fabric like a second skin. And the third? A note, casually slipped under the remote control on the coffee table like an afterthought. Going out for dinner. Don't wait up. Please feed Milo. See, no smiley face. No love you. Just a heart. Cold, mechanical, guilty. I didn't panic. I didn't scream. I stood there, holding that note with 2 fingers like it might burn me if I gripped too hard. I went and fed the cat. Milo looked at me like I was the biggest fool on earth. He probably wasn't wrong. You ever feel like a ghost in your own home? Like you're haunting your marriage instead of living in it? I sat down, that stupid sweater still sitting behind me like it was mocking me. I turned on the TV. I didn't watch anything. I just stared at the screen until the silence got so loud it felt like a siren. And that's when I checked her location. I know how that sounds. But listen, when your wife of 15 years starts going to dinners without you and wearing perfume that costs more than your monthly internet bill, you stop caring about dignity. Her little blue dot? At some restaurant downtown. A trendy place. Candlelight. The kind of place we used to go back when we still held hands without thinking about it. I zoomed in, watched the dot sit still, and then I watched it move to the valet stand, then to a parking lot, then disappear completely. She'd turned her location off. That's when I knew. It wasn't a dinner. It was a date, and not the kind you come home from feeling innocent. Still, I waited, like an idiot. At 12:36 a.m., the front door creaked open. I didn't say a word. I just watched from the hallway as she tiptoed in, heels in her hand, hair a little messier than it had been when she left. She didn't even look at me. She walked right past me, right past the folded sweater, the empty TV screen, and the dinner I'd left untouched on the counter. Straight to the bedroom. I stood there for 10 minutes, wondering what part of me had allowed this to happen. What part of me had become so easy to erase. And then, for the first time in 15 years, I did something without telling her. I opened a folder on my computer labeled Private, Do Not Touch. It was old, dusty, forgotten, but inside was something she never expected me to still have. A truth she'd buried. A name she never wanted to hear again. And a plan I never thought I'd need. She went on a date. But I didn't get angry. I got ready. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a little. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw the image of her walking past me in that half-guilty, half-victorious silence. Like I was some background extra in a scene she was starring in. 15 years, and I had been demoted to a chair she used to love, but now just tossed her purse on. I sat in front of that folder for hours. Private, Do Not Touch. She had seen it before, back when we first got the laptop. She rolled her eyes and said, "What's in there, your secret video game scores or your high school poetry?" I had laughed back then, but I never answered. And she never asked again. But it wasn't poetry. It was the stuff she didn't want to remember. And the stuff I never forgot. See, back in our 3rd year of marriage, Cora made a mistake. A big one. She admitted to kissing a coworker after a conference dinner. Said it was nothing. Said she felt guilty immediately and that she came clean because she respected me too much to hide it. I believed her. Or I tried to. I cried in the bathroom for 2 hours that night while she fell asleep on my side of the bed. I didn't leave. I didn't yell. I forgave her. Like a fool. I buried the humiliation under this idea of starting fresh. But I kept every detail. Every message. Every email. Every photo she deleted but didn't know I had backed up. Not to use against her. To remind myself that the fire she once set could always be relit. And not in a good way. So when she came home from her date, walking like her conscience had finally taken a nap, I opened that folder not to relive the pain, but to weaponize the truth. Quietly, strategically, I printed the emails. The old ones. Just 2 of them. Folded them neatly and slid them into the drawer next to her side of the bed. No notes. No confrontations. Just evidence. Ancient echoes of who she once was. A reminder. The next morning, I made her coffee. She came into the kitchen in that same beige sweater, still not knowing that I had spent the night crafting the first crack in her little illusion. She gave me a surprised smile. Coffee? What's the occasion? I handed her the mug without a word. Her fingers brushed mine. I felt nothing. She took a sip. Thanks, Ev. Still nothing. About an hour later, I heard the drawer open in our room. Then silence. Then a very specific kind of sound. Not a gasp, not a sob. Just this weird, shaky exhale like someone trying not to throw up or scream. I didn't go check. I waited. 5 minutes later, she walked into the kitchen, papers trembling in her hand. You kept these? She asked, her voice thin. I nodded once. Why would you after all these years? Insurance, I said, looking her dead in the eyes. For when you finally forgot what loyalty was supposed to look like. She didn't say anything. Just stood there, holding her past like it had come back to claw through her present. I could see the color drain from her face. That's when I pushed a manila envelope across the counter toward her. What's this? She whispered. Something new, I said. Inside was a printed reservation. A table for one. At the same restaurant she went to the night before. And under it, a note I'd written at 3:17 a.m. when the pain became clarity. You had your date. Now I'm taking my seat. No anger. No profanity. No begging. Just facts. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. And for the first time in 15 years, I walked away first. I didn't look back when I walked out that morning. The envelope had been left in her hand, her expression caught somewhere between shame and confusion. Maybe she thought I was bluffing. Maybe she thought I'd walk around the block, cry behind a gas station, and come back with flowers. She didn't realize that something inside me had shifted overnight. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was deciding. I drove to the restaurant where she'd had her little date. I knew the place, modern, dimly lit, with waiters who pronounce basil like it's French. We used to eat there on our anniversaries, back when anniversaries still meant something. Back when she looked at me like I was a person, not an old habit. The hostess looked confused when I said I had a table for one. She smiled politely, but I could tell she was trying to do the math. I didn't care. I sat down, ordered a glass of something I couldn't pronounce, and waited, not for anyone else, but just to exist in the space she had chosen to betray me. And then, I saw her. She walked in, alone. Her eyes scanned the room quickly, probably expecting to catch me mid-revenge or halfway through a meltdown. Instead, she saw me sitting there, calm, sipping from a ridiculous wine glass like it was just another Tuesday. I didn't wave. I didn't invite her over. I just nodded once, like I see you. And then I looked away. She stood frozen for a second before walking back out. That's when I realized something I hadn't seen clearly until that moment. She wasn't in control anymore. After lunch, I drove somewhere I hadn't been in years. Her father's garage. Her dad and I used to be close. Before the kiss, before the counseling, before everything got awkward and hollow. He was the kind of man who didn't say much, but when he did, it hit you right in the ribs. He used to tell me, don't ever let someone rewrite your worth in their language. At the time, I thought it was just cryptic dad wisdom. Now it felt like prophecy. He was outside sanding down an old wooden bench when I pulled up. The look on his face when he saw me wasn't surprise. It was relief. Took you long enough, he said, not even looking up from the bench. I didn't know what to say. I just sat down on the tailgate of my car, staring at the same patch of cracked driveway I'd parked on 100 times before. She told you? He finally asked. Not really, I muttered. She showed me. He nodded, slow. Thought so. We didn't speak for a while after that. Just the sound of sandpaper and birds. But sometimes, silence says more than confrontation ever could. Before I left, he handed me a small cardboard box. Inside were a few things, photos, a letter, and a USB drive. She stayed here a few nights back in 17. Claimed it was for work. You probably never knew. I didn't. But I do now. I drove home with that box in the passenger seat like it was a bomb. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit there. I wanted her to see it. I wanted her to know that this time, the story wasn't hers to control. When I walked through the front door, she was pacing the kitchen, eyes wide, like she'd been expecting police or worse, honesty. Where did you go? She asked immediately, voice sharp and desperate. I set the box down on the kitchen table and answered flatly, to your past. She stared at it like it had teeth. What's in there? She asked. I shrugged. Maybe everything you thought I forgot. And then I left again. Not because I didn't want to stay, but because I wanted her to sit in it. To stew. To realize that she might have played the first move, but the game wasn't over. Not even close. I didn't touch the box again for 2 days. It sat on the kitchen table like some cursed relic neither of us dared open, but both of us orbited around. Cora avoided it like it was radioactive. Every time I walked into the room, I could see her eyes flicker toward it, then away. She never asked again what was inside, which told me everything I needed to know. She already knew. On the second night, I cracked. Not in the dramatic, crying on the bathroom floor kind of way. Just quietly, like a fault line giving up under pressure. I waited until she went to bed, then sat down at the table in the dark and pulled the USB from the box. No label, just a small black stick that somehow felt heavier than the entire room. I plugged it into my laptop and waited. My palms were sweating. My chest was tight. There was only one folder. It was named Fallback. My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen that word in years, but it sparked something instantly. That's what she used to call me, her fallback. Jokingly. Back in college, she used to say, if I never find anyone better, at least I've got my Everett. I'd laugh back then. Now it made my skin crawl. Inside the folder were audio files. Not many, just 3. I hesitated before clicking the first one. My heart was pounding like I was defusing a bomb. I pressed play. Her voice. Not sweet. Not like I remembered. This version of Cora sounded careless. Detached. She was laughing. Talking to someone, another man. His voice was deeper. Confident. A little too familiar. I mean, Everett's nice. He's safe. Predictable. I know exactly what he's going to say before he says it. But you, she giggled. You make me forget I even married him. The guy laughed. Said something crude I won't repeat here. She didn't stop him. The second file was worse. Her voice was softer, more intimate. Like a whisper meant to be a secret. I think about you when I'm with him, she said. Sometimes I fake being asleep just so I don't have to roll over and look at his face. He's like background noise. And I hate that I settled for it. I stopped the recording right there. I couldn't take it. My lungs felt like they had collapsed in on themselves. Settled. That word. Like I was some knockoff version of what she really wanted, but came with free shipping. I didn't play the third file. Not then. I didn't need more proof. The damage was already echoing through every memory I had of us. Every anniversary photo now looked staged. Every gift felt like a bribe. Every moment we spent in silence. Was that boredom? Or just her waiting for someone better? I took the USB out and set it back in the box, but this time I taped the lid shut. I didn't want to see it again. It was no longer just a piece of plastic. It was a tombstone. The next morning, I didn't make her coffee. I didn't greet her with silence. I greeted her with distance. She came down the stairs like a woman preparing for war, bracing for yelling, maybe a teary fight. But I was calm. Too calm. That scared her more than anything else. You okay? She asked, eyes darting toward the box. Yeah, I said, pouring cereal. Just finally realizing what being Plan B really feels like. Her face went pale. She opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. I don't need an apology, I said. Not anymore. What do you want then? She whispered. I looked her dead in the eye. To give you exactly what you asked for. Freedom. She didn't know what that meant at first. But she would. Oh, she would. Because while she was planning dates behind my back, I had already made my own arrangements. Cora didn't follow me when I left that morning. She stood at the edge of the kitchen, watching me gather my keys, my phone, and a small duffel bag I had quietly packed the night before. The air between us felt like static. Heavy, charged, impossible to breathe through. I didn't slam the door. I didn't make a speech. I walked out like a man leaving a job he should have quit years ago. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that I had been preparing for this longer than even I realized. You don't live in quiet misery for years without developing a survival instinct. Mine came in the form of plans I never thought I'd use. Bank accounts in my name only. A mailbox I paid for in cash across town. A friend from high school who owned a tiny cabin 2 hours away and always said, if you ever need to disappear for a bit, I've got you. So I did. I drove in silence. No music. No phone calls. Just me and my thoughts, which, honestly, were screaming. Every mile I put between myself and that house felt like a release. Not a clean one. More like tearing Velcro off your skin. But still freeing. The cabin was exactly what I needed. Quiet. Isolated. Nothing but trees, wind, and the occasional bird that looked at me like it pitied my sad little suitcase and my 1,000-yard stare. I didn't text her. Not the first day. Not the second. I left her with silence. The same kind she had weaponized against me for the past few years. You know what hurts someone who craves attention more than yelling? Being ignored. But on the third day, something inside me cracked. Not from weakness, from curiosity. I logged into the shared cloud account. She had forgotten I still had access. Rookie mistake. And that's when I saw them. Photos. She hadn't even tried to hide them. A few selfies. Her at some art exhibit I didn't recognize. A man in the background. Always blurry, always slightly out of frame, but always there. Tall. Tan. The kind of guy who wears sunglasses indoors and probably says things like, "I don't believe in labels." I stared at one image for a long time. She was laughing. Genuinely laughing. The way she hadn't with me in years. That broke something deeper than I expected. Not because she was with someone else. Because she wasn't hiding it anymore. And still, I didn't call. I opened a new document on my laptop. Titled it the unedited version. I started writing. Not a letter. Not a goodbye. A report. A full, detailed timeline of everything. From her first girls' night lie to the last blurry photo. I included dates, locations, emotional notes, screenshots. It was thorough, cold, unflinching. It took me nearly 5 hours to finish. I didn't cry once. I was past that stage. When I was done, I printed the entire thing at the small town library 2 miles away. 18 pages, front and back. I slid it into a plain envelope, sealed it, and wrote one thing across the front. "If you're still pretending, don't open this." I mailed it to our house. Not to punish her. To confront her with something she couldn't charm, manipulate, or deny. The truth as I lived it. The next day, she finally called. I let it ring out. And then I got in my car, headed back into the city, not to make peace. Not to fight, but to deliver the final message. You can only burn someone for so long before they learn how to build from ashes. The city felt different when I came back. Colder. Not in temperature, but in spirit, like I no longer belonged to it. Or maybe it had never really belonged to me. I drove slowly past familiar streets, places Cora and I used to go when we still talked without effort. The old bookstore where we spent rainy Saturdays. The park where we once slow danced under a tree during a thunderstorm, laughing like teenagers. All of it felt distant, like scenes from a life I had only borrowed. When I pulled into our driveway, her car was there. Still, she hadn't run off with him. Not yet, anyway. That gave me the first real twinge of something like relief, followed quickly by guilt. Why did I still want her to stay? After everything? After she said I was safe, like it was an insult? After she laid down her loyalty for a few hours of excitement with a man who didn't even care enough to be fully in the frame? I unlocked the door slowly. The house was eerily quiet. No sounds of cooking, no TV humming in the background, not even the soft tapping of her nails against her phone screen. Just silence. Until I saw her. She was sitting on the couch. Pale. Eyes red. The envelope. My envelope. Open on the coffee table like a confession she never asked for but couldn't ignore. The entire report lay in a messy spread across the wood. The screenshots, the photos, the printed messages, my handwritten annotations. The truth in black and white. She didn't even try to stack the pages. It was like she'd gone numb halfway through. When she noticed me, she stood up too fast, like she'd been caught committing a crime. Her voice was hoarse. "Everett. No." I cut her off gently but firmly. "You had 15 years to talk. I'll take 5 minutes now." I walked to the kitchen, made myself a glass of water, then returned. Sat on the edge of the armrest, just far enough that she couldn't reach for my hand. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see the woman I fell in love with. I saw someone who had worn her old skin like a costume until the seams finally gave out. "I'm not angry," I said. And it was true. Not anymore. You did what you did. You chose who you chose. I'm not here to fight or plead. I just need you to stop pretending. She blinked rapidly, like her body was fighting the urge to collapse. "I never meant for any of this to." "Don't finish that sentence," I said, quietly but sharply. "You meant for everything. You chose it. You made space for it in your life. You lied for it. You laughed through it. You forgot me to feed it. So don't insult me by pretending this was some accident." She looked like she'd been slapped. But she didn't argue. That told me more than her words ever could have. I sent that envelope not to punish you. I continued. I sent it so you could finally see me. Not the backup plan. Not the fallback. Not the safe option. Me. The man who stayed when he shouldn't have. The man who forgave more than he ever admitted. The man who let you rewrite our marriage into something convenient. Until you stopped writing it all. Tears streamed down her face, silent and heavy. She didn't even try to wipe them. Maybe she thought it would soften something. It didn't. I'm moving out, I said finally. The cabin's temporary, but it's quiet. Peaceful. I need that. You can have the house for now. I'm not taking anything that matters to you. And believe me, I know nothing in this place really does. She opened her mouth again, but I stood up before she could speak. I had said what I came to say. Anything more would be re-entering the story she already set on fire. As I walked toward the door, she whispered, I still love you. I paused, just for a second. I think, I said, you love who I was before you broke him. And then I left. I didn't cry in the car. I didn't scream. I didn't punch the steering wheel. I just drove. But something inside me was already shifting. The story wasn't over. Not yet. Because while she thought she could break me with silence and guilt, she hadn't realized one simple thing. I was already writing my own ending. The second time I left that house, it felt different. The first time was a retreat, an escape from a marriage that had already hollowed itself out, while I kept pretending there was still something left to salvage. But this time, it was controlled. Measured. I wasn't running anymore. I was exiting. I didn't take much. Just a duffel bag, my laptop, and a single framed photo from our wedding. Not because I cherished it anymore, but because I needed the reminder of how good she had been at pretending. I studied that photo during red lights on the drive back to the cabin. I wasn't in love with her smile anymore. I was analyzing it, trying to figure out when exactly the performance started. Back at the cabin, the air hit different. It was cold, clean, honest. I could breathe again, and maybe for the first time in years, that breath didn't feel like it came with conditions. No sideways glances, no quiet disappointments, no wondering if her silence meant sadness or just boredom. The next morning, I finally opened the third audio file from the USB. I had avoided it for days. Something about it felt final, like crossing a line I couldn't walk back from. But now, I needed to hear it. All of it. The audio started with the clinking of glasses. A restaurant, a hotel bar, then her voice, low, sultry, practiced. He doesn't even look at me like a woman anymore. He looks at me like I'm his habit. The man she was speaking to murmured something I couldn't make out, but it made her laugh. That same light, flirtatious laugh she used to save for me. I mean, I keep trying to push him, she said, just to see if he'll do something. If he'll finally stop being so damn weak. But he just takes it, like always. Silence. Then the guy said, maybe he just really loves you. Another laugh from her, colder this time. No, he needs me. That's different. That's not love. That's fear. He's terrified of being alone. I stopped the file right there. I didn't need to hear the rest. I didn't want to know how deeply she'd misread me, or how accurately. The part that stung the most wasn't even the betrayal. It was the tone, that quiet disgust she reserved for people she pitied. And to think, that's what I had become in her eyes. But here's the thing about breaking. Sometimes, when everything falls apart, the pieces don't scatter, they sharpen. I spent the next 24 hours doing something I never thought I'd do. I wrote her a letter. Not the I miss you kind. Not the how could you kind, either. It was a goodbye, but not for her. For me. I was writing to the version of myself that had spent 15 years apologizing just for existing. The man who mistook crumbs for meals. The man who held his breath every time his wife got a text after 10 p.m. I told him he could rest now. And then, I did something that changed the entire trajectory of everything. I posted the audio files anonymously, not to shame her, not to ruin her, but because sometimes, when someone rewrites your life in their image, the only way to take your voice back is to let others hear it. I didn't mention names. I didn't drop hints. But I let the truth breathe. And it spread faster than I expected. Within a day, I got a message request from an account I didn't recognize. Everett, we need to talk. I think I'm not the only one. My stomach turned. The username? It was a woman's name. Her profile picture? A man I recognized. The same blurry figure from the photos Cora had saved in the cloud. The other woman had just entered the story. And she wasn't coming quietly. The message from the woman, let's call her Avery, changed everything. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't angry. She was tired, and her first line to me said more than 1,000 words of apology from Cora ever could. I didn't know he was married. The man Cora had been seeing? He had a girlfriend. A serious one. A 5-year relationship. He hadn't just been cheating with my wife. He had been lying to another woman who thought she was building a future with him. Turns out, betrayal leaves collateral damage. Avery and I? We were both just roadkill on the path of selfish people who didn't know how to commit, but didn't want to be alone either. We met up in person a few days later. Not romantically, not vindicatively. Just two bruised people trying to piece together their stories. And you know what? There was something healing about sitting across from someone who understood the pain without needing a backstory. We talked for hours. Laughed even. Not in the everything's okay kind of way, but in the real way, like something cracked open just enough to let air in. Meanwhile, back in the world I had walked away from, things were unraveling. Cora found out that her fling had been cheating on her, too. Avery told him everything. Sent him the audio files. His reaction? Denial. Blame. Ghosting. Classic. Cora messaged me the night it happened. It was long. Teary. Rambling. She said she never meant to hurt me. That I had always been the one person who made her feel safe. That she thought I'd always be there. But that was the point. I had always been there. And she mistook that for permission to treat me like a backup plan. What she didn't realize until it was too late was that even the softest people eventually learn to walk away and mean it. I didn't respond. Instead, I moved forward. I kept writing. I started therapy. I reconnected with friends I had drifted from during the years I spent wrapped up in her moods and minefields. And Avery? She and I stayed in touch. We're not dating. We don't need to be. But there's a strange kind of peace in knowing you're not alone in your healing. That somewhere out there, someone else crawled out of the same wreckage and decided to stand up instead of lie down. 1 month after I mailed Cora the envelope, I got a final text. I understand now. I hope you find what I threw away. That was the last I ever heard from her. And honestly, I hope she does too. Because even though she broke something in me, I rebuilt it into something better, not harder, just wiser. I don't hate her. I don't wish her misery. I just wish her away from me. If you've made it this far, thank you. Seriously, this story wasn't just for me. It was for anyone who's ever been told they were boring, predictable, or safe, only to find out later that they were someone's entire stability. Don't let anyone shame you for being loyal, for loving deeply, or for staying soft in a world that rewards cruelty. Just don't forget that you're allowed to leave when someone stops choosing you. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment in life where walking away felt like the most powerful thing you ever did? Drop it in the comments. I'll be reading them. Let's talk. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, right here on Reddit Confessions. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind, and never be ashamed of starting over. Everett.